had an opportunity to ask your question, please just drop me a note in the chat and we'll try and get to you. Thanks again for joining, and I'll kick it over to the Congressman.
There we go. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you joining me today. I'm just going to make a few quick opening remarks and then look forward to your questions. And some of this you probably read in my earlier statement. So during challenging times like these, the country needs elected leaders to work together to meet the most urgent needs in their communities. This bill addresses urgent needs, vaccine distribution, testing, and I believe unemployment insurance, most importantly. But those account for less than 20% of the total spending package. There are portions of this bill that I support wholeheartedly, but party leaders chose to go far beyond them by hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. After supporting $4 trillion in emergency COVID relief last year in 2020, I chose not to support trillions more in funding that is poorly targeted, or in some cases not necessary at this moment in time. For example, I fully support increased SNAP benefits and voted to increase them just a couple of months ago in December, along with much of the rest of Congress. That assistance runs through the end of the month of June, 4 months from now. I'm open to supporting additional food assistance, but that is something that we should do after watching the economy through these next 4 months and let the economy drive COVID policy. I also supported providing $25 billion in rental assistance last December. And Mainers are just getting $200 million of that money, but none of it has been spent yet. We just started accepting applications this week in Maine through the governor's office, and Congress is already looking to send another $30 billion out there to states. These examples just scratch the surface, but they add up to hundreds of billions of dollars. Congress came together to spend $4 trillion over the past year to help Americans weather the pandemic and economic fallout. With vaccines ramping up, our state budget showing some signs of resilience and recovery, and the economy beginning to show real signs of life. We're not in the same uncertain place we were last March or just a few months ago in December. Adding another $2 trillion in spending at this moment exceeds the demonstrated needs of our communities and fails to take into account nearly $1 trillion in new funding recently passed, much of which has yet to hit the economy. That's a key point. Not to say that it isn't dedicated somewhere, but to say that it has yet to enter into the economy and have that positive effect that it's going to. A lot of people have told me that the danger is Congress going too small and not too big with this package. I know you've heard that. I don't think that makes sense when you consider that the Biden administration is already saying that they're likely to follow this bill with another infrastructure package, an economic recovery package, rumored to number in the trillions of dollars. Between the money spent in 2020 and today's package, we're already nearing $6 trillion in new spending in less than 1 year. Spending at these levels puts at risk critical programs such as Medicare and could sap resources needed for important future priorities, critical priorities for the American people, such as rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure or making investments to fix our broken healthcare system. One last thing I do want to make clear, and then I'll turn it back over to Nick to take your questions. This was a vote I made on principle. Politically, no doubt, the easiest choice would have been to just vote yes. But I didn't come here to do what was easy. I came here to do what I thought was right. And I do that bill by bill, week to week, from things like the Equality Act, which we voted on Thursday, to this bill we voted yesterday, or to the DREAM Act or the PRO Act coming up soon in the weeks ahead. I call it the way I see it, in the context of the time and with my heart on my sleeve. with that, we'll take your questions.
Hey, folks. Again, I'm going to offer questions to folks in the order that they RSVP'd, and I'll unmute you to ask your question. So first, we're going to go to Phil Hirschkorn with WMTW.
Thanks, Nick. Good afternoon, Congressman.
Good to see you, Phil.
I'm not wearing my Air Force One hat to intimidate you. It's not a message from the Biden White House.
Well, I've never been on Air Force One, so.
Well, your time will come, sir. In all seriousness, I guess I'll just throw two questions out there. Yes, you just addressed sort of in the last one the comments you've made before about you're not being comfortable with reconciliation, that in and of itself was the most partisan way to ram this through, and that's exactly what happened. I wonder if you can address that again, and in terms of all the specifics you mentioned that you've been for, but you can't vote for this version. I just wanted to see if you would comment on the stimulus piece, because you said that 90% of Maine taxpayers would get it, but you're troubled by the high ceiling, which affects wealthier people primarily in other states. Why not let the 90% of Mainers get the tax cut and let the rest of it go? Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Absolutely, I have expressed regret about the decision made to go with budget reconciliation as a vehicle on this COVID relief package. That's not to say that budget reconciliation shouldn't be used by a majority, but why use it on an issue where you can get bipartisan support sufficient to meet the need? And as I laid out in my remarks, there are other important priorities down the road. And we are going to do an economic recovery package as well, Phil. So it is not a vote that is simply meant to, object to a poor process in a partisan decision made by party leaders, although I didn't agree with it, but also because that process, had it been, done differently, with negotiations with Republicans, would have given us a more targeted relief package, which would hold in reserve, money for the types of investments that I think we all, support and think are necessary, like infrastructure, which we've been talking about, Phil, for quite some time now. So I hope that answers your question. In regards to the checks, I guess I'll just say, really, I mean, let's just stop and think about it. We have a unprecedented in our lifetime pandemic, which caused a very sudden, economic crisis. Everyone is now talking about a K-shaped recovery. Some people are actually doing better than before the pandemic. The economic gap, inequality is actually growing for those who are in industries hit hardest. We need to target our assistance at those people. And to send checks out, just for because it's politically popular, to someone who's bringing home $175,000, so that's like the wealthiest 2% in our state. It's just not necessary. We should send that. I've had people say to me, Jared, don't send me a check. I'm doing good. I got my job and my paycheck. Give the money to someone who needs it.
All right, we're going to go now to Jackie Mundry. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks so much for taking my question, Congressman. So I'm just looking at the press release that you guys sent out. My first question is, what do you kind of wish this bill looked like? I know you kind of cite unemployment assistance and vaccine and testing aid. Did you wish there was more than that, more of that?
Yeah, I think that I've said in the past, Jackie, as this process played out, that my constituents want me to support the exact amount of COVID relief or economic recovery that is necessary, not $1 less and not $1 more. And so, the specifics really do matter. Certainly, I believe that the unemployment insurance is the foundational provision of this bill. There's a lot of good economists out there talking about how important that is because of this, kind of divided economy, where some people are doing just fine, working from home or working in the shipyard, and others have been unemployed as a result or had their hours reduced. They need the most help. And so when you think about what's good for our economy and those who need it the most, the extra federal unemployment, I think, is most important. A lot of people have said, let's stop running these people up against cliff after cliff as policymakers, and instead just extend this for as long as the pandemic economy requires it. We could build in some kind of agreed upon economic, indicators, which, if not met, the unemployment assistance continues. When the economy is fully recovered, it can phase out and go away. So that's just one example. I think the vaccine funding, I don't know that we need more of that, to be completely honest with you. Down the road, again, just looking at where the economy is at, would I support things like another extension of the extra 15% per month paid out for SNAP to support people who need it most? Yes, absolutely. I think the real question for me is the timeliness of it. Is it necessary today, or can we wait and reevaluate this economy 4 or 5 or 6 months from now?
All right, we're going to go now to Megan Cole. Go ahead, Megan.
Hi, thank you so much. Hello, Congressman Golden. Hope you're having a fabulous Saturday. So I have a couple quick questions for you. My first one is, what would you add or take away to make this the ideal COVID relief package? And where do things go from here?
Yeah, it's certainly not, it doesn't have to be perfect. I get that. It is not, an easy thing to do to build the perfect piece of legislation. I think you got to look at the full context of what I've laid out here, which is that we have invested $4 trillion last year towards COVID relief. If you go back and look at our annual budget and spending, you will see that is a phenomenally large amount of money. We are looking at an amount of spending in this period of time that has not been done in our lifetimes, really since World War II. So what I'm talking about is priorities. Let's spend exactly what's necessary, in the context of the moment, rather than just saying, let's throw, as much at it, as we have the political, will and votes to do. Let's meet the need without throwing in waste. So it's not necessarily specific things. There are a number of things in the bill that I think are not COVID related, maybe good policy that I would support, normally as some kind of standalone bill, if there were debate and in this Congress enough votes. What's an example of that? The expansion of the child tax credit is something that Congress has been looking at for a long time. There's even Republican proposals out there to do that. But this is just a one-year fix, and that is really a policy that needs to be changed for the long term. It really doesn't belong in this package. That's about $100 billion. When you look at that entire section of the bill right there.
All right, we're going to go now to Doug Rooks. Doug, go ahead.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Congressman Golden, for meeting with us on a Saturday. I guess we all do that these days. I had a couple of questions. The first one was the issue of timing. As you know, Congress was kind of in turmoil last year, going right up to and including and after the election. The first coronavirus bill was passed very quickly within a couple of days of the shutdown of most of the economy. And then the House passed another bill, the HEROES Act, and essentially it sat on the table for 6 months without anybody doing anything about it. And as we know, the economy is hard to turn on a dime. The fourth quarter numbers were very bad. It was pretty clear the economy was going back into recession. So I'm wondering a little bit about this timing. If we wait to see what's going to happen in 2021, is Congress really going to be able to, after doing all the other legislation you've been talking about, want to come back and do more relief programs? I think the argument for the big bill always was, let's authorize the spending. It doesn't all have to take place. As you pointed out yourself, a lot of the spending that was already authorized hasn't taken place. I'm not quite sure why you'd vote against this bill without a clear alternative to vote for. What you're thinking there?
Well, let me absolutely be clear. This is not an authorization bill. Every dollar of this, if passed, will be spent. they're not going to exercise that type of judgment to hold it back. So once it goes out, it is out. And I actually think that 2020 makes the point that I am talking about. Despite the fact that it was a divided Congress and we had Republican control of the White House and then President Trump, who at times was a little inconsistent in what he did or did not support in regards to the response to the pandemic. Doug, I think you and I would agree. Congress was able to act repeatedly. So the idea that we won't be able to muster the votes now with Joe Biden in the White House, I think is a false argument. It's a convenient one politically, I suppose, for going down this road. But I believe that there was strong Republican support for doing more. I suspect for the vaccines, for the testing, for the public health portions of the bill, to extend unemployment beyond mid-March, certainly to the end of June. And I've even spoken to some Republican senators who said, if necessary, I would have gone beyond the end of June when we got there. So I think that there was a will to continue to meet the need as we are faced with it. You made a couple of great points, actually, I think, which is that the HEROES Act was so large in its proposal and so packed of unnecessary things that it had no shot of passage in the Senate. And the Republicans weren't doing much better. Both leaders in both parties were driving us away from the negotiating table. It was polarization and partisanship that kept us from getting a deal late last summer and fall. And it was a committed bipartisan group of people that got the deal done in December. And so, yes, as we saw the Q4 numbers not looking that great, and the surge in cases, virus infections coming out of the holidays, we actually were able to turn the economy around quite quickly with that $900 billion package. And that's why I think we're starting to see in states like Maine and others that the economy has some good signs of life in it. We're not 100% there. But that, I don't think, justifies another $2 trillion. Right now, in this moment, I suspect that the Republicans would have come much higher than the initial offer we saw when they went to the White House. In fact, I know that they would have because I've spoken to them.
All right, we're going to go now to Owen Kingsley. Owen, if you're on, go ahead. Owen, are you there? I can give you 2 more seconds and then we're going to move on. Okay. We are now going to go to Jim with WCME. Jim, go ahead. Not hearing from Jim.
Yeah, hi, I am here. My question's pretty much taken by Mr. Rooks. I'm okay.
All right, thanks, folks. We appreciate your time. If you have any questions or if you'd like a recording of this event, please shoot me an email. I believe you all have it. Otherwise, thanks for your time on a Saturday, and we appreciate it, unless the Congressman wants to close us out.
No, I'm all set. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, folks.